Good afternoon, my turtle ducks. Just in time for tea. Please help yourself. I've got sugar and honey and cream or lemon. We've got jam and butter for the tea cookies. If you're here for the first time, this is a return to our conversation about etiquette while out in public. I suggest starting with that video, but it's not necessary. If you're returning, thank you very much for coming back. I think we should start with the most complicated and, I think, least visited, the theater. Getting ready for the theater begins at home and deciding upon your appearance. This is where the stratification begins. There are two kinds of theater: community and professional theaters. Community theaters have very different expectations and etiquette. Community theaters are typically very informal, thus, whatever style you embrace, you should seek to wear the most casual or informal version of that style. Additionally, due to the usually very constrained size of community theaters, consider wearing garments which take up as little space as possible. Tall hats or hairdos, wide skirts, or extravagantly large coat collars may impede other guests' ability to view the performance or encroach upon their seating space. Community theaters tend to warm up very quickly, so if you're sensitive to heat, it may be a good idea to wear layers that can be removed for comfort. Try to keep a confined profile as much as possible so everyone may maintain comfort. Professional theaters, on the other hand, tend to be much larger and have significantly more space available per person. They are also typically considered a much fancier affair, thus, the dress code will be more formal. It's a good idea to take into consideration the kind of performance, as dress expectations can run from semi formal to black tie. Operas are typically considered black tie, while children's plays are much more likely to be semi-formal to business casual. Keep in mind that the larger size of professional theater means they are typically much cooler. If you're sensitive to cold, it may be wise to bring a light jacket with you, regardless of the temperatures outside. It is not uncommon to go out to eat either before or after a theater event. You should choose an establishment that matches your level or formality of dress. Too fancy for a given restaurant, and you may make the staff or other clientele uncomfortable. Too informal for a restaurant, and you may be denied entry, even if you had a reservation. While it is not considered under etiquette, I personally suggest choosing a place inspired by the performance you're planning to see. Not only can it add to your overall experience, it can help with decision paralysis as it will limit the choices to fairly specific categories. Let's return to the community theater, as they are open more frequently and are usually easier to get to and to get tickets to, as tickets may often be purchased that day. So upon arrival, the first order of business is usually to purchase a ticket and find a seat. Rarely is seating assigned, so try to choose a seat that is suited to your needs. If you need to frequently get up to move around or may need to frequently leave, it would be best to choose a seat by the door so you are less likely to pose a distraction to other guests or the acting and stage crew. If you rarely need to move, sitting in the middle leaves outer seats available for those who do. If you have good sight and good hearing, consider sitting further back to leave seat for those who may benefit from being closer to the stage. Professional theaters, on the other hand, regularly have assigned seating. Always check your ticket for a seating assignment. If you are purchasing the tickets day of, the teller may specify, but please ask if you aren't sure. Depending on the level of formality, many professional theaters have ushers that may simply direct you to your seat or escort you all the way there. Due to both their size and the relative immaturity of the theater crew that manage and perform within, there tends to be a higher level of familiarity between the actors and actresses and audience. This may extend to audience participation. It is not at all uncommon for community theaters to expect some level of audience participation and reaction. Not all performances are appropriate to participate in, but laughter or noises of shock need not be muffled to the same extent that you might for a professional performance. Due to the usual size of community theaters, Louder reactions are actually less likely to disrupt the ability of other guests to enjoy the performance, as it may even be paused during particularly exuberant audience reactions. In a professional theater, on the other hand, the size of the theater and volume of guests may encourage stilted reactions. Those farther from the stage may have a difficult time following the dialogue should other audience members become too loud. Subtle chuckles, small gasps, and other reactions are fine, but it is important to remember other guests just as you might want your own experiences taken into account. Between acts. Regardless of size, it is a good idea to try and keep your movements to a minimum. Adjusting in your seat is fine, but standing or excessive moving around may impede the view of other guests or make it difficult for them to keep track of the stage. Between acts is the perfect time to stretch your legs, relieve yourself, retrieve refreshments, and of course, talk about what happened. Much like a movie theater, it is impolite to talk excessively with either strangers or friends, so please keep commentary about the play to between acts. Some people have auditory issues, and if you are closer to them than they are to the stage, it may impede their ability to hear the actors. After performances, some tropes will have meet and greets where you can talk to the actors or the director. Sometimes you can even get autographs. An autographed program is a perfect keepsake if they're not selling merchandise or not selling something you want. Finally, the show is over, but there's one thing to remember before you leave the theater: the ushers. Messes and trash will have to be collected by someone. If it's yours, it's polite to collect it and deposit it in the trash yourself. Of course, accidents and spills happen, but the less we leave behind, the better guests will be, so try to leave as little as possible. Let's go to the movies. Movie theaters almost always have much more relaxed atmospheres when it comes to dress. However, it is an excellent time to show off your creative skills if you are attending a movie where costumes may be appropriate. While attending a movie alone is perfectly reasonable, it can be more fun to attend with at least a small group or a friend, particularly if you plan on dressing up. If you are dressed up, do be prepared for people to comment, approach, and maybe even ask for pictures, especially if your costume is particularly interesting. Once inside and you have obtained any refreshments you intend to get, it's time to find your seats. If you're alone, simply sit according to your preference. However, if you are in a group, make sure that no one has any specific seating needs, such as mobility or sensory issues. As long as there are not contradictory needs, it's best to sit in the most accommodating area. If no one has any specific needs, try not to sit in areas that might be more accessible. For instance, some theaters have specific seating for those with mobility issues. Most of us are terribly familiar with how much time usually exists between when the theater says a movie will begin and when it actually begins. Do not let this gap go to waste. If you have purchased refreshments that are prepackaged, now is a great time to open those. Even if you don't want them immediately, having them open means you won't risk noisy packages during the movie itself. Most movie theaters will remind you, but this is also the time to turn your phone to silent and turn your brightness to the lowest setting. It will always look brighter once the lights have dimmed, and if you absolutely must look at it, the dimmer screen, the less the impact will be on your neighbors. While not everyone has a schedule flexible enough to plan for their own favorite watch styles, if you have the ability, it can really benefit your experience and the experience of others if you can choose when to watch the movie based on how active you prefer to be during a movie. Evening movies are the most densely populated and likely to be the most rambunctious. Matinees are likely to have fewer people in general, but may also have more children present due to most theaters charging less for those tickets. Morning and midday shows are likely to have the fewest people, so long as you go on a weekday. So, if you are the type of person who really likes to talk during a movie, it may be best to go with a small group earlier in the day where you may be less likely to disturb other viewers and may even meet others who enjoy more conversational movies. Later movies are likely to have the most diverse group and thus the most strict viewing etiquette to make sure as many people may enjoy themselves as possible. It may be louder between movies and acts, but the movie itself should be relatively quiet, particularly movies geared more towards adults. As a general rule, if the theater is not very full, it may be wise to greet other moviegoers and try to assess their movie watching style. If you and the other guests share the same style, you can relax and watch without worry of disturbing or being disturbed. In this vein, if you are attending the movies and the theater is quite full, try to keep conversations low and limited so as not to distract or disturb other viewers. While natural reactions may be quite expected, keep in mind that excessive screaming, as may occur in a horror movie, and overly loud sobbing for more emotional scenes may prevent other viewers from being able to hear the movie. No one will begrudge a startled yelp or gasp of tears, but if you suspect a movie might evoke a strong reaction, it may be wise to bring a handkerchief or a friend to prevent over-exuberant emotions from taking over. Finally, the end of a movie. While hardly anyone bothers, and most credits roll so quickly as to prevent proper reading anyway, it is considered a show of appreciation to sit and at least try to see who was responsible for everything that goes into a movie that isn't just acting. Hundreds of people may be involved in just one aspect of a movie and may never be recognized. But if you have the eye for it, you might see who works most frequently on the special effects of your favorite movies. When leaving, it is important to leave in an orderly manner to prevent injury in a poorly lit theater with uneven stairs. The most efficient method would be for either the topmost seats or the middlemost, that is, those closest to the door level, to leave first from the outermost to the innermost seats, then going row by row. However rarely this is observed, it is still common for those on the outermost seats to leave first. So if you have something immediately after your movie or are simply not interested in waiting from the middle, it may be a good idea to sit on an outermost seat. Remember to take all your trash with you and deposit it in the nearest available trash bin. Overfill bins do not count. For the sake of those who have to empty them, please look for trash that is not overfilled. If ushers are waiting to come in, or if you are the last leaving and they have come in to tidy, thank them and wish them a good night or a good day. If someone has spilled a drink, you may find it polite to warn them of the mess in case they need additional cleaning supplies. Gracious, it looks like I'm out of time again. I hope you'll come back for our final tea on this topic. I have to get back to work, but I hope you found this helpful. Thank you for joining me. Until next time, be kind, my little turtle ducks, to others and to yourselves.